Defining biodiversity. Biodiversity is the diversity of and in living nature. Diversity, at its heart, implies the number of different kind of objects, such as species. However, defining biodiversity or measures of biodiversity is not so simple. The 1992 Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro defined biodiversity as the variability among living organisms from all sources, including, inter alia, terrestrial, marine and other aquatic ecosystems and the ecological complexes of which they are part. This includes diversity within species, between species and of ecosystems. Levels of biodiversity. There are 3 levels of diversity, viz. Genetic, species and ecosystem diversity. In effect, these levels cannot be separated. Each is important, interacting with and influencing the others. A change at one level can cause changes at the other levels. Genetic diversity. Genetic diversity is the fundamental currency of diversity that is responsible for variation. This is the diversity of basic units of hereditary information which are passed down generations found within a species, e.g. different varieties of the same species. Different varieties of mango or rice are examples of genetic diversity within species. It is genetic diversity that allows a species to adapt to changing environmental conditions such as a lower rainfall or a higher temperature year-round. Species diversity. Species diversity means the differences between species, both domesticated and wild. It is the most visible component of biodiversity as implied by the word species, which literally means outward or visible form. This is why we often tend to describe biological diversity in terms of the number of species in a particular area or at the global level. There are different estimates of extant, i.e. currently existing, species on Earth which range from about 5 to 100 million, but a figure of about 12.5 million is the most widely accepted. Of these, only about 1.7 million species have been described as yet. In terms of sheer numbers alone, insects and microorganisms are the most abundant life forms on Earth. Box 6.1. Known species of flora and fauna in the world. 4,500 species of mammals. 10,000 species of birds. 12,000 species of amphibians and reptiles. 22,000 species of fish. 400,000 species of invertebrates, excluding insects. 960,000 species of insects, approximately 600,000 of which are beetles. 270,000 species of plants. 70,000 species of fungi. 4,000 species of bacteria. 5,000 species of viruses. Ecosystem diversity. Ecosystem diversity means the variation between different types of ecosystems. Different species of animals, plants and microorganisms interact with each other and their physical environment, such as water or minerals. Groups of organisms and the non-living environment, and the interactions between them, form functional dynamic and complex units that are termed ecosystems. These systems help maintain life processes vital for organisms to survive on Earth. Species are not evenly distributed around the globe. Some ecosystems such as tropical rain forests and coral reefs are very complex and host a large number of species. Other ecosystems such as deserts and Arctic regions have less biodiversity but are equally important. It is believed that there is a positive relationship between species diversity and an ecosystem's stability and resilience, i.e. ability to resist disturbances. An ecosystem having higher diversity means the number of species and interactions between them which constitute the food web is large, Fig. 6. 1a. In such a situation, the elimination of one species would have little effect on ecosystem balance. In sharp contrast, the number of species in the food web of a simple ecosystem is small, Fig. 6. 1b. So loss of any one species has far more serious repercussions for the integrity of the ecosystem itself. The two illustrations give comparative picture of ecosystems with high A and low B species diversity. The circles represent organisms. Note the complex linkage in A, only a few links in B. The increased numbers of links are believed to confer stability to the ecosystem. The biogeographic zones of India and their biodiversity. The country has been divided into 10 biogeographic zones: Trans-Himalayas, Himalayas, Indian Desert, Semi-Arid, Western Ghats, Deccan Peninsula, Gangetic Plains, Northeast India, Islands, and Coasts. This classification was developed at the Wildlife Institute of India by Rogers and Panwer, 1988, and it is being largely followed. What are these biogeographic zones? These represent the major species groupings. In addition, each of these 10 zones indicates a distinctive set of physical, climatic and historical conditions. The Himalayas and Gangetic Plains are examples of two adjacent but obviously extremely different zones. The biogeographic zones of India. From W. A. Rogers and H. S. Panwer, 1988. Planning a Wildlife Protected Area Network in India. Volume 1. Department of Environment, Forests and Wildlife, Government of India. Zone 1. The Trans-Himalayas. This zone has an area of about 186,200 square kilometers and it covers mainly Ladakh and Lahaul Spiti. This zone is much more extensive than the area within India. Taking the topography into account, the area comes out to be around 2.6 million square kilometers, with altitude between 4,500 and 6,000 sea level. The wildlife of the Trans-Himalayas zone. This zone represents an extremely fragile ecosystem, because of its harsh climatic conditions and the inhospitable terrain. The vegetation of Ladakh and Lahaul Spiti is largely a sparse alpine steppe. In addition, several endemic species also occur here. This area within India, along with Pakistan and Tibet, has the richest wild sheep and goat communities in the whole world. There are 8 distinct species and subspecies of sheep. The flatter plateau have a distinct grazing community comprising of wild yak, Tibetan ass, Tibetan gazelle, ibex and Tibetan antelope. In addition to these herbivores, there is an equally distinctive set of carnivores including snow leopard, Indian wolf, Pallas's cat, fox and smaller animals like marbled polecat, pika and marmot. Of these the Pallas's cat is endemic to this area. The lakes and marshes too have a distinctive avifauna including the spectacular black-necked crane, which is a migratory bird. Avifauna refers to the birds of an area collectively. Fig. 6.3. Sheep species found in the Trans-Himalayan zone. A. Uriel, Ovis orientalis. B. Nyan, Ovis ammon hodgsoni. C. Marco Polo, Ovis ammon polly, and D. Markhor, Capra falconeri. Fig. 6.4. Some herbivores of the Trans-Himalayan zone. A. Wild yak, Bos grunions. B. Gazelle chinkara, Gazella. C. Tibetan ass, Equus hemionus. D. Ibex, Capra ibex, and E. Tibetan antelope, Pantholops hodgsoni. Fig. 6.5. Some carnivores of the Trans-Himalayan zone. Marmot, Marmot caudate. Zone 2. The Himalayas. The Himalayan mountain ranges in India stretch for over 2,000 kilometers from east to west. The wildlife of the Himalayan zone. The Himalayan zone is one of the richest areas of India in terms of habitat and species diversity. First, let us look at the wildlife within the altitudinal and longitudinal range of Himalayas. These are I. The lower subtropical foothills. These have typical mixed deciduous community merging into cheer pine, Fig. 6.6 and then ban oak. E. The temperate areas. These lie below 3,500 meters. This zone has a complex mixture of vegetation types with forests of maples, Fig. 6.6b, and walnuts, moru and oak, Fig. 6.6c, and a variety of conifers such as the blue pine, fir and spruce. Some representative members of the Himalayan vegetation. A. Cheer pine, Pinus roxburghi, a cone. B. Maple, Acer sp. C. Oak, Quercus sp. D. Blue pine, Pinus wallichiana, a cone. E. Fir, Abies sp. Tree and a cone. F. Spruce, Piea smithiana, found in western Himalayas, a cone. G. Spruce, Piea spinulosa, from eastern Himalayas, a cone. H. Rhododendron, Rhododendron sp. E. The sub-alpine area. This area has forest and scrub vegetation of birch and rhododendrons, Fig. 6.6h, interspersed with grasslands with several kinds of herbs. IV. The western zone. This is a comparatively drier area with deodars, Fig. 6.7, and blue pine. V. The central zone. There is a poor representation of large herbivores. Ibex, markhor and hangul populations have dwindled significantly. Vi. The eastern zone. Mishmitakina herbivore, is found here. This area has a higher tree line, and supports arboreal forest animals at higher altitudes. Fig. 6.7. Deodars, Cedrus deodara predominates the western zone of Himalayas. B. C. Orchids constitute characteristic vegetation of the eastern Himalayan zone. Some animal species of the eastern Himalaya, Tarkine, Woodorchis s.p. Endemism is high in nearly all groups of plants and animals found here. In addition to the endemic species, there are quite a few endangered species in high-altitude region. Zone 3. The Indian Desert. This zone is located in the western part of the country and is also known as the Thar Desert. It covers West Gujarat and West Rajasthan. Parts of Punjab and Haryana were once a part of this desert, but the irrigated cultivation has changed the situation there. The wildlife of the Indian Desert. The wildlife of the desert zone is peculiar not because of its great diversity or density, but because of the extraordinary ecological adaptations to the desert conditions. Several of the species are endemic to Thar Desert. Desert fox, desert cat, houbara bustard and some sand grouse species are restricted only to the Thar area. Prosopis cineraria, Salvadora oleoids are common trees of Indian desert. Fig. 6.9. Desert cat, Felis libica. Zone 4. The semi-arid. This zone with an area of 508,000 square kilometers occupies 15% of the total area in our country. The presence of several grass species and palatable shrubs in these areas has made them a favorite of a vast number of wildlife species. The wildlife of the semi-arid zone. This zone has strong biological links with Western Asia, primarily with Pakistan, Iran, Middle East and Northern Africa. Many of the plants found here show African affinity, e.g., Acacia sp. The fauna consists of larger Libiviers blackbuck, chowsinger, gazelle and nilgai. Plants of the semi-arid zone, Acacia leucofloea, ronge. Some faunal elements of the semi-arid zone, nilgai, Boselaphis tragacamelus, female, and male, 8, sloth bear, Malursis ursimus, and c. Lesser florican, Siphiotides indica. Zone 5. The Western Ghats, biodiversity hotspot. The Western Ghats represent one of the major tropical evergreen forest regions in India. The total area of Western Ghats is about 160,000 square kilometers. In the west, the zone is bound by the coast and in the east, it shares boundary with the Deccan Peninsula zone. The tropical evergreen forests occupy about 1/3 of the total area of this zone. In recent years, a large chunk of the forest cover has been lost and this zone is now of great conservation concern, more so because of its exceptional biological richness. About 2/3 of India's endemic plants are confined to this region. However, the potential of many of these species is yet to be tapped. Besides harboring diverse biological communities, the forests in this zone also play an important role in maintaining the hydrological cycle. The well-known species found exclusively in Western Ghats include the following. Among primates, Nilgiri langur and lion-tailed macaque. Rodents, Platyconthymes, the spiny dormouse. Squirrels, several subspecies of Ratufa indica with separate forms in Maharashtra, Mysore, Malabar and Tamil Nadu Ghats. The grizzled squirrel is restricted to 2 localities in the drier Tamil Nadu forest. Carnivores, Malabar civet in southern evergreen forests, rusty spotted cat in northern deciduous forests. Ungulates, Nilgiri tahr in Nilgiris to Agastiamalai montane grassland. Hornbills. Malabar grey hornbill. In addition to the above endemic species, the other species found are tiger, leopard, dhole, sloth bear, Indian elephant and gaur. The faunal elements of Western Ghats are swamp deer, Cervus duvorsali, b. Nilgiri langur, presbytized johnny, c. lion-tailed macaque, Macacus silenus, d. Nilgiri tahr, Hemitragus hylocrius, e. Malabar grey hornbill, Toccus birostris, f. dhole, Quan alpinus, and g. gaur, Boscorus. Zone 6. The Deccan Peninsula. This zone covers the largest area in India that amounts to about 43% of the total land mass, and about 1,421,000 square kilometers area. Though a large area of this zone has been greatly altered by humans, still some forest areas exist, particularly in Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra and Odisha. This zone has deciduous forest, thorn forests and degraded shrublands. There are small areas of semi-evergreen forests in the eastern Ghats and dry evergreen forests or thorn scrub on the coastal side of the plains of Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. The faunal species are widespread throughout the whole zone, e.g., cheetal, fig. 6.14, sambar, nilgai, chowsinger, barking deer, and gaur. Some species such as the blackbuck are restricted to dry open area. Small, relict populations of species also exist, e.g., elephant, Bihar Odisha, and Karnataka Tamil Nadu, and wild buffalo, in a small area at the junction of Odisha, MP and Maharashtra. Zone 7. The Gangetic Plain. This zone has one of the most fertile areas in the world, and it supports a dense and growing human population. It covers an area of about 359,400 square kilometers. The original vegetation found in most of the area is no longer there, as a major portion of this area has been brought under cultivation. The wildlife of the Gangetic Plains. Small relict populations of nilgai, blackbuck and chinkara, interspersed with dense cultivation presently exist in the western areas. The wetlands and rivers also contain crocodile, mugger and gharial populations, reef-licked populations of Gangetic dolphin and a rich, freshwater turtle community having over 20 species. Zone 8. Northeast India. Northeast India represents the transition zone between the India, Indo-Malayan and Indo-Chinese regions as well as the meeting point of Himalayan mountains and peninsular India. It is one of the most important zones in the Indian subcontinent for its rich biological diversity and a large number of endemic species. The Brahmaputra Valley of this zone contains unique natural vegetation swamps, grasslands and fringing woodlands and forests. The fauna consists of rhinoceros, buffalo, swamp deer, hog deer, pygmy hog and hispid hare. This area also contains the largest elephant populations. This is also the flyway for waterfowl and other birds traveling between the warmth of the subcontinent and their summer grounds in Siberia and China. Zone 9. The Islands. In this category we shall discuss the Andaman and Nicobar group of islands in the Bay of Bengal, and the Lakshadweep in the Arabian Sea. The Andaman and Nicobar Islands are a long group of 348 north-south oriented islands. The zone possesses a unique kind of plant and animal life exhibiting a high degree of endemism. One finds these islands with impoverished mammal fauna. This may be largely due to the isolation of Andaman and Nicobar Islands and the small island size. Amongst mammals, species of rodents and bats dominate. Out of the 15,000 species of flowering plants found in India, some 2,200 species are found in these islands. 2 such species are shown in Fig. 6.16. Over 200 are strict endemics. Zone 10. The coasts. India has a vast coastal stretch of about 5,689 kilometers, Srinivasan, 1969. On the west, the Arabian Sea washes the shores of Gujarat, Maharashtra, Goa, Karnataka and Kerala states. On the east, the Bay of Bengal washes the coasts of Sundarbans in West Bengal, Odisha, Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu states. The southern promontory of Indian Peninsula is bathed by the Gulf of Mannar and Indian Ocean, along the coasts of southern portions of Tamil Nadu. The wildlife of coasts. The geology of coasts is very varied, and accordingly, 5 main communities have been described. A. Mangroves. That have a variety of community types from seaward to landward facing areas of estuaries, lagoons and deltas. B. Sandy beaches, including raised beaches and distinctive plant communities such as Casuarina, Calophyllum, Pandanus. C. Mudflats with a range of successional stages to completely terrestrial vegetation. D. Raised corals and rocky coastlines. E. Marine angiosperm pastures. An endemic species is one that is restricted to a given area and is not found elsewhere. Some of the interesting coastal wildlife species include dugong, humpback dolphin of estuarine turbid waters, estuarine or saltwater crocodile, olive ridley, green, hawksbill, leather and loggerhead sea turtles, the estuarine turtle, Bataga basker of Sundarbans, and the huge soft-shell estuarine turtle, Peliculus bourboni off the Utkal Bengal coast fish, mud skippers or semi-terrestrial gobies, small crabs in association with anemones, avifaunal communities of mangrove, mud flats and lagoons. In the higher regions of mangroves, there are spotted deer, pigs, monitor lizards, monkeys, and the Sundarban tiger. Biodiversity hotspots. Hotspots are areas that are extremely rich in species, have high endemism and are under constant threat. Myers, 1988, identified 18 regions or hotspots around the world. Interestingly, these areas contain nearly 50,000 endemic plant species, or 20% of the world's plant species, in just 746,000 square kilometers, or 0.5% of the Earth's total land surface. A subsequent study done by the World Conservation Monitoring Centre, UK, identified 21 hotspots. A more recent study by Conservation International, which carries forward the work of Myers, has identified 34 global biodiversity hotspots. These 34 hotspots cover only 1.4% of the Earth's land surface but contain about 44% of all vascular plants and 35% of vertebrates, excluding fishes, and 96% of the world's most threatened primate species. Among the 34 hotspots of the world, 4 are found in India extending into neighboring countries: the Western Ghats, Sri Lanka Indo-Burma region, covering the eastern Himalayas, the Himalayas. Sunderland covers the Nicobar group of islands, Fig. 6.17. These areas are rich in floral wealth and endemism, not only in flowering plants but also in reptiles, amphibians, swallow-tailed butterflies and mammals. Tropical moist forests are believed to be the richest terrestrial ecosystems on Earth. In the marine environment, coral reefs also possess extremely rich biodiversity. It is now suspected, however, that the richness of species diversity on sea floor may be equal or even greater than coral reefs. Some countries are richer in biodiversity than others. Generally, the economically poor developing countries in tropical areas are richer in biodiversity than developed countries in temperate areas. Small tropical oceanic islands have relatively fewer species due to their isolation, but they generally possess large number of endemics. Mauritius has a native flora of 878 higher plant species, of which 329 are endemic. India, a mega biodiversity country. Why India is one of the mega diversity countries. 4 hotspots out of 34 global biodiversity hotspots are in India with its neighboring countries. The endemics of Indian biodiversity is high. About 33% of the recorded flora is endemic to the country. Of the 49,219 plant species, 5,150 are endemic and distributed into 141 genera under 47 families, corresponding to about 30% of the world's recorded flora. India has 26 recognized endemism centers that are home to nearly a third of all the flowering plants identified and described to date in the country. India has 2 major realms called the Palearctic and the Indo-Malayan, and 3 biomes, i.e. tropical humid forests, tropical deciduous forests and the warm deserts, semi-deserts. India has 10 biogeographic regions. India is one of the 12 centers of origin of cultivated plants. Use values of biodiversity. Despite its importance, determining the value or worth of biodiversity is complex and often a cause for debate. This is largely due to the fact that the worth placed on biodiversity is a reflection of underlying human values, and these values vary dramatically both among societies and individuals. In this unit, we include spiritual, cultural and aesthetic values as a subset of indirect values or services, as they provide a service by enriching our lives. Classification of values of biodiversity is provided in a key form below for your easy understanding. Value of biodiversity. Use value, non-use value, passive value, optional, direct, indirect, existence, bequest, extractive, non-extractive, non-consumptive, aesthetic, cultural and religious, consumptive, productive, direct use value. Direct use values are for those goods that are ensured directly, e.g. food and timber. Maintaining a wide range of components of biological diversity can be of direct use, especially in the fields of agriculture, medicine and industry. Direct use can involve the use of forests, wetlands or other ecosystems for timber extraction, collection of non-timber products, fishing, etc. Direct use values could be due to extractive use where resources are extracted and consumed, or due to non-extractive use when there is no extraction or removal of the resource that is used, e.g. birdwatching, scientific research in an ecosystem. Indirect use value. Indirect use value is for those services that support the items that are consumed. You will study about various indirect use values in this section. Non-consumptive value. This is concerned more with nature's services which also make vital contributions to the welfare of society and to ecological processes without which our planet would be uninhabitable. Aesthetic value. The appreciation of the aesthetic aspect of biodiversity is reflected in the trouble people take to maintain their home gardens, and the number of people throughout the world who visit national parks, botanical and zoological gardens, aquaria and places where one can experience natural landscapes or view diverse species. Cultural and religious values. In all cultures of world, species and nature have inspired songs, superstitious beliefs, stories and folktales, and dance and drama, poetry, traditional crafts, local and national cuisines, local rituals, names of places, and even family and Christian names. The cultural value of biodiversity in human societies is often expressed in the respect for life forms or symbols of components of biodiversity. In some countries the tiger, lion, lizard, turtles and bison are part of religious and spiritual beliefs. For instance, the Hanuman langur, Semnopathecus entellus, is considered sacred in India. Ethical values. The ethical values of biodiversity highlight the intrinsic value of biodiversity for its own sake, and it is independent of the varied economic, social and cultural uses of the large number of species by human communities. It underscores the fact that humans are only one of the millions of species that inhabit the Earth, while each species is unique and is the result of evolutionary processes without human intervention, so that every species has a natural right to exist. Non-use value. Values for those things, organisms, entities, that we don't use but would consider as a loss if they were to disappear. These include potential or option value, bequest value and existence value. Optional use values. Optional values are associated with potential use in the future. Accordingly, one opts to conserve biodiversity based on the hope that it could be used directly or indirectly in the future, perhaps as a source of genetic material, for pharmaceuticals, or for crop enhancement. Bequest value. Existence value. There may also be non-use existence values for components of biological diversity due to the value placed on biodiversity purely based on its continued existence, irrespective of whether or not it will ever be used.